Welcome to this demonstration of Cohesity's data platform. In this demo, I'm going to showcase how Cohesity can help enterprise organizations protect against ransomware cyber attacks by simulating the actions, effects, and impact of a ransomware cyber attack that infects a Windows file server virtual machine by encrypting a number of directories and files and preventing access to information. I will then demonstrate the efficiency and effectiveness of the platform against ransomware by quickly restoring the state of the virtual machine to a point in time within minutes prior to the infection of the cyber attack. I'll start the demo directly from the vSphere web client. Here I have a virtual machine which I'm going to use for this demonstration that is called Ransom VM. This is a Windows Server 2012 virtual machine that is currently operating and running as a Windows file server. So let me launch the remote console. Once the remote console is open, I'm going to take a look at some of the structure of the files that are currently being shared in this particular file server. Here I have a combination of a couple of different files which are deemed to be mission critical. So within that particular share, there are 3 subdirectories for finance, healthcare, and HR. So if we look at some of the documents that pertain to finance, for example, credit cards, you can see that they're easily accessible. There's some data that is actually available there. If I look at some of the health related accounts, there's actually, again, some information that is readable and accessible. Let me take a look at the other directory. Now we have some HR related information. That is yet again another accessible file that can actually be read and see the information that is within. Now what happens here is that I'm going to now simulate the event or the process where a cyber attack, a malware cyber attack sort of hits the system, whether it be initiated by an end user or a file that you double click. In this case, there's an executable file that says tax returns, which is how a lot of these sort of hacks tend to happen. And here, once that file is clicked, you'll see that there's an action taking place, and obviously it's being said that they ransomware rookies have infiltrated your system, and they're demanding a certain number of bitcoins in order to provide access back to your files, and they're also demanding that to be done within a specific amount of time, which is 48 hours here in particular. So now after that's done and it's completed, if I try and take a look at the actual directory and files, you'll see that it's inaccessible. At this point in time, I can no longer access the directory, let alone the files that are part of that particular share. This is very similar to the behavior of some of the most recent ransom cyber attacks that have happened within the industry. So one of the things that we're able to look at here, so this is a virtual machine, obviously, that is currently running in a vSphere infrastructure, running on virtual SAN, that is being protected by Cohesity. So because of this virtual machine was already part of a protection job, in order to get it back in its regular state, we go into the Cohesity UI, and we can identify that we have a job here that says corporate file servers. Now, obviously, there's a policy that runs that particular job in a certain frequency. And because of that, we're able to restore the virtual machine to a state where the cyber attack hadn't taken place yet. So we go through the recovery process, just a couple of clicks in here. We're going to go and restore a virtual machine. We could do this on a file basis or even maybe applicable to a database if needed. But in this case, we're sticking to just the virtual machine itself. Notice how the virtual machine is already available here. And here we have the option to change the discovery option. So for example, because the machine is still there, and for the purpose of this demonstration, I'm going to rename the virtual machine that I'm restoring. And here's the important thing. Once the virtual machine is backed up and protected by Cohesity, the clone of the files are placed in a sort of an immutable format, where even if the ransomware takes over a file share or anything like that, it cannot touch the Cohesity backend or the infrastructure because these files are never presented or mounted to the operating systems themselves, right? So you can see here I can choose the restore location, the network options, and all that stuff. But the important piece is here where I can select within minutes a point in time to recover that virtual machine in order to gain access to those files without having to pay some sort of ransom. So I'm going to look at the frequency of the backup jobs, and you can see they're performed within a couple of minutes, and you can get as low as a single minute. And I'm going to choose something that is about 4 minutes from the last backup job that ran, because maybe the last job that it ran, the ransomware was already as part of the system. So let's look at one of the versions where it may not have been in the system as of yet. So we'll look at and select a restore point where it's about 4 to 6 minutes from when the ransomware attack was sort of initiated, and we saw that. So as you can see here very quickly, the job of restoring the virtual machine is completed and it's successful. So now very quickly we can go back to the vSphere client and identify that the machine has been restored, and we can actually identify the difference between the production, the current virtual machine that's running, compared to the one that was just restored. And in this case, you can see that it is named based on the sort of changes that I've made as part of the restore job. Now what I'm going to do is basically launch the console for this particular clone of that virtual machine, that instance, and you'll see that very quickly we now, by logging in, we'll be able to gain access back to the files and directories that were previously encrypted without having to go through many sort of loops or having to pay any particular ransom. And within minutes, you can gain access back to all of the files that were sort of infected or encrypted cyber attack that took place within the system itself. And that's about it. No heavy lifting, no heavy operational procedures. Recovering from ransomware attacks with Cohesity is just as simple as you've seen it here. Organizations are able to now do this very effectively and continue to protect their vSphere infrastructures with this level of ease of utilization and capabilities. And that's about it. Thank you for watching.